Hi everyone, this is Striker, and welcome to episode number 8 of my Redout Advanced Strategy Guide series. Those of you who have been with this community long enough might remember a period of time in the game's history infamously referred to as the Wallgrind era, which was a patch released a few years back that basically eliminated any speed penalty from grinding or colliding against walls while you're turning. This subsequently broke a great deal of tracks, since you no longer had to precisely steer around some of the game's toughest corners, but rather could just grind and slide your way through them, maintaining speed. What if I told you that wall grinding is not extinct? And to add on to that, what if you actually need to wall grind to set a world record? If this intrigues you, let's take a look at my Revolving world record and break down the footage. Welcome back everyone. Now that you've seen the revolving lap in its entirety, I'm sure you've picked up on a few interesting ways that I approached some of the wall collisions in the trickier segments of the track. Now, as an aid for you to understand the ideas of wall grinding in this track, I will actually splice in the lap footage so you can hear some of the audio quirks of making sure you approach wall grinding properly. Now, as I prepare for this lap here, the main thing to note is I want to get as far to the left on the loop as possible without crashing into the left side wall. What that is going to allow me to do is, as this loop slightly slopes to the left and my ship gets thrown further to the right, I am not going to come in contact with the right side barrier. If I do that properly, once I exit that segment, I should be prepared to drive in a completely straight line towards the starting grid. And I should hold a speed of around 1,300 kilometers per hour. So you see the speed gauge right there? If you can maintain this kind of speed, you have a very good possibility of achieving a great wall grind at the start and a top lap time. If you're not at that speed, I would just reset the lap and try again. I do want to make sure my boost gauge is relatively high at the start, because I want to create a partial boost drain right as I cross the starting line. So now I'm about 1/3 drained. From here, you will notice that the natural inclination of the track is to shift left and slope up. And that is going to make achieving a singular wall bounce, as we would in most other turns, impossible. So what I want you to do instead is focus on driving in a relatively straight line with very minor amounts of steering correction. If I do this properly, I want you to watch that I will contact this wall once here and again twice. As I did that, you even saw some sparks come from the bottom of the ship. This is a wall grind. Now right here, I'm going to splice in the actual lap footage so you can hear some of the specific audio cues when attaining a proper wall bounce. Have a listen. Now, if I hit this properly, I should still be holding about 1,000 kilometers per hour. And now once I exit, I can train a little bit more boost and build myself up to about 1,100 kilometers per hour. If I can hold 1,100 here, I'm going to be able to carry more speed through this next left corner and achieve a very fast turbo. So, as I talk about in many of my other videos, I want you to focus on cutting the angle of this turn and sloping as close to the barrier as possible with an appropriate direction of the ship. Now once I contact this wall, I bounce once here, I bounce again there. So in rapid succession, that's a very fast 1-2 bounce. And I'm going to play back the audio of that just so you can hear that as well. Now, as I exit this position right now, I want to hit an immediate turbo boost. Now, you might be saying to yourself, it doesn't look like you straightened the ship out before you turboed, so aren't you losing speed? That is the case. Though, in my testing, I found it is more valuable to boost early, lose a little bit of potential top speed, but achieve a longer period of turbo boosting down the straightaway, rather than hitting the turbo later and then having to turn even more sharply into this next corner. Now, as I start to approach this checkpoint grid, I want to be turning already and create a very wide sweep to that next wall grind. If you don't do that properly, you kind of hit that left side barrier here and get stuck and lose a lot of speed. So watch how early I start to create that shift, that counter strafe, and then glide right out of that position. One thing I want to point out on this track in particular that makes it quite unique is the importance of managing your hull. In most other tracks in time trial, the hull is of little consequence, but because of the amount of contact that you need to achieve a good lap in revolving, the hull becomes a critical component of preparing yourself for your attempt. If you look at the beginning of this lap that I just ran, I started at about 2/3 of hull. If you start the lap with, let's say, half of your hull gauge remaining, you will not have enough health to survive these first 3 wall bounces if they are done ideally. In races, this becomes even more critical, since now you have to factor in the other ships and collisions in addition to the way you're supposed to drive the track. And that's why most people, when they play Revolving online, use the Koenigswerth ship because of its higher hull rating. After we approach this segment, I want you to make sure you hit that boost pad on the right there. And then I want you to start preemptively sloping before we approach this next turn. So just like I did on the last turn, I don't want to wait until I'm in this range because that kind of arc is going to slow down my ship. I want to stay very close, and the only way to stay close to the right side barrier here is to preemptively shift. Now here is where I made the one minor mistake in this track, and why this is actually not my best lap. The best lap I ever ran on this track was a 24.071, I believe it was. However, that was a non-glitched time. So according to the way that the Redout timer tends to glitch, and I'll talk about that a little more in a future video, the lap in absolute terms would have been a 23.98-ish, as opposed to the 24.03 lap that you'll see right here. What happens is I accidentally bumped that right side barrier. That type of collision, let me play this back so you can hear the audio, does not make a sound. Watch this. So that means that this collision did not create a loss of velocity. I kept my speed, but what it did do is it slightly shifted my vehicle right there, a little bit too far to the left. Now here, I had to make a rapid steering correction to the right, and there is my speed loss. Still good enough for a world record, but not my personal best. Once I exit this corner, I am going to now position my ship looking a little bit to the left and perform a right side counter strafe to gain speed through this next straightaway prior to the loop. If you want a more detailed breakdown of this, please go watch my Ghibli lap, as that track has some very long straightaways that amplify this effect. If I can create the side strafing properly, I should achieve about 1100 kilometers per hour coming over the loop. Once I just get to the top here, that's when I hit my turbo boost. This is going to be a very strong turbo since I'm starting at 1100 plus kilometers per hour. From here, I'm going to achieve about 1700. In terms of where this track is positioned, I'm going to leave the track right here at my cursor. Most people would look to land in this section. If we turbo boost from this spot and land here, you would need to pitch down. And pitching down and subsequently riding the track back up is going to lose you some time based on the extra distance we're covering. So if you see my cursor, I want you to leave the track here and land right at that little slight amount of daylight, right here. So watch the way I approach this jump. I fly right across the kill plane and I land just before the portal. Watch how closely I cut this kill plane. This is a bit deceptive because it looks like I'm going to collide with it and through it, but it actually doesn't kill you unless you actually hit the cave above. So from here, I can land, and the closer I can land on that slope by the portal, the more speed I'm going to maintain. Once I go through this portal, I am going to get as far to the left as I can. So look at my ship, look at the barrier. That's pushing it real close, but at 1500 kilometers per hour, my ship will get thrown to the right. But I still didn't contact the wall, and I'm still holding a high amount of speed. From here, I don't really have to steer. I can use my strafing. I first strafe left to get to the left. I try to hold left strafe so I don't contact the wall. Now I'm going to right strafe to avoid this side barrier as I'm hitting my turbo boost hard to the finish. And look how perfectly that aligns me right at the starting grid. So in totality, if I just review this lap with you one more time, important aspects of this lap will be, number one, keeping your speed up in the start so we can travel right to the starting line without any slowdown. Creating those ideal wall balances where your speed remains high, boosting early off of that left-hand turn, sloping early into the right-hand turn, and like I mentioned before, not encountering this slight mishap with the right side barrier. Other than that though, this is a very good lap, and with a track that only takes 24 seconds, your margins for error are less. So I hope that this video gives you some of the insights to improve your technical skills, and I look forward to bringing you more Redout content in the future. Thank you.